Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Jean Thill, and on today's show, we're visiting with Donna Carroll, Executive Director of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities, talking about leadership in higher education. And you've known Donna for a long time.
We have. Dr. Carroll's a great leader and has a great heart, and so looking forward to that conversation. And her presence really is kind of signaling, here we go, another school year, another academic year is ready to unfold. And, both for our families and our college students and all. My assistant, Angie Hemmingson, her son Garrett went off to college for the first time. Yep. She said there were no tears shed until she left him and was beginning to drive home from Fort Dodge, from Fort Dodge, Iowa Central. So tremendous. Yeah. So all the best to him and to all of our students. Be patient with yourselves, getting used to, but also be intentional about keeping the faith life going. And because they say, what happens in the first month, whether you cross the threshold of the campus church or an area parish, will help to form the habits. And if it doesn't happen, well, unfortunately, the relationship with Jesus will be a little estranged. And so we don't want that for any of them. But
I do have advice for parents. Now, granted, Chelsea was in college a long time ago, but I was listeing to the Carole King album, and the song "So Far Away" comes on. Tears. So don't listen to that.
All the bathos here. Okay. But it was great kind of kicking it off because we know our Holy Family School has an extended school year.
That's
so
right.
we had our opening school mass on Thursday.
Oh,
a delight and a lot of positive energy there. And it's also a month of signature saints, and as always, the church. But I think sometimes there's an ebb and flow. And I think August is a time in particular. So Maximilian Kolbe yesterday, looking forward, if I can say it that way, I don't know, because it's always sobering when we're with the pilgrimage group to Poland in the month of September. 55 Iowans and others will be joining Jon Leonetti and myself. But the visit to Auschwitz, too, and the camp there and the cell block where Maximilian Kolbe offering himself, forgetting not love in exchange for the Father. And his tenacity and residual faith, be giving courage and solace to those in the cell with him. And ultimately the Nazi says, let's just get it over with. So it depends. Sometimes the custodians of the camp are allowing people to visit the cells. Sometimes they don't. I can't really figure that out. But we will be there. And it will be sobering what humans can do to one another, and hopefully a reminder to each of us of the dignity that's ours and the charity that we owe each other. So, and that gracefulness, the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, one of my favorite feast days, in part my late grandmother Symington's birthday, a very special day to my mother and to all of us in the family. But it's just always that time also signaling that, again, we're making the turn and the harvest of grace. So for those who don't maybe feel at peace in their own bodies, we pray that Mary, assumed into heaven, can allow that forward and that smoothness of that passage each day, but ultimately the passage on the last leg of the journey, that was hers. So be with the good people in Shelby County. We're having a Eucharistic procession right after following 9 a.m. Mass at St. Joseph Church in Earling. So you're probably, by the time you're hearing this, it's too late to make a change in your plans, but we look forward to being with the good people there and carrying our Eucharistic Lord, flesh of the flesh of Mary and the Son of the Father. And again, we keep that Eucharistic devotion alive. Fallen 2 years now after the Eucharistic Congress, right, in Indianapolis.
Is this a part of that big Eucharistic procession that's from all four dioceses?
This one is not. This is a kind of kind of freestanding, our own deal. And then tomorrow we'll be with the candidates at St. Boniface Waukee, not St. Boniface, Westphalia, but Waukee, and celebrating the sacrament of confirmation. And then next week, here we go, convocations for the Central Iowa Catholic school educators and administrators and staff.
And we're off.
And then parish catechetical leaders on Tuesday in Stewart, Shelby County, St. Albert Catholic School on Thursday, the opening mass there. So we are fully at the threshold.
Put your foot on the gas pedal. Hey, we're taking a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be visiting with Dr. Donna Carroll, Executive Director of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Join Iowa Catholic Radio for the Daily Gospel Reflection with me, Father Nick Smith, by subscribing to the podcast or listening to the Catholic Morning Show, weekdays at 7 Central here on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. Encounter Jesus.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. On today's show, we're visiting with Dr. Donna Carroll. She is the president of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities. And we're talking about leadership in higher education.
And other topics.
Topics
for our area as well. Dr. Carroll, thank you for being with us. And we go back a ways, some collaborations and various endeavors. But so good to have you. Are you excited about a new school year? And, you're even inaugurating presidents around the country.
Right, I am. But, I still miss not being in the role of university president and opening a new year. It's just such a joyful time. You're energized by it, and so I now observe it from afar.
Would you walk around with a box of Kleenex on campus for the entering first years and their parents?
For the moms.
Yeah.
No, but I would walk around in a Dominican sweatshirt, and I would try to move those freshmen in. So.
Wow, heavy lifting. Good for you. Dominican University in Illinois, where you were president for how many years?
I was the president there for 27 years.
That is remarkable, because the average tenure for a Catholic college and university president would be what, roughly?
Right now it's 5 years.
5 years.
A little bit longer for Catholic institution presidents, but not much right now.
Barely enough time to implement a strategic vision or something, right? Or at least get it going, right? I mean, then they hand it off.
And build the level of trust and an understanding of the mission, in ways that can have influence. So that's a challenge, and of course the constraints of the moment, political and financial, make it even more so.
Okay, so Illinois, greater Chicago, the second city, but you also East Coast young woman as well.
I am born in Brooklyn, the source of all Catholic families, and
I don't sense a dialect there or an accent or anything.
No, I grew up on Long Island and went to college in Boston, and worked at Fordham before I went to Dominican. And so I've been in Catholic higher ed for over 35 years.
Wow. So was it Boston College or another institution? Or
No, it was Wellesley College.
Oh, okay. One of the Seven Sisters there.
Yes, one of the Seven Sisters. And actually, it was the reason I chose, I should say, because Rosary College at the time was the fourth institution I was offered the presidency at, or at which I was offered the presidency, because it was formerly a women's college, and I just had the sense that the mission fit, and it was an institution that was welcoming of women's leadership.
Wonderful. And so was there a religious order that sponsored the Rosary?
Cincinnati Dominicans.
Known well to many people, particularly from northeast Iowa, across the river there.
Absolutely. I remember the day that I came to then Rosary and went to the Mother House in Dubuque, Iowa, and sat in a telephone booth calling my mother in New York City saying, I'm in Dubuque, Iowa, and I can see Wisconsin and Illinois.
Instead of saying, I can see the Bronx from here in Manhattan.
Exactly.
So,
but it was an extraordinary experience. I can say it was transforming of my leadership and the person I am for all those years there.
Thank you.
Now Dominican women are extraordinary.
Wonderful. We just had the Feast of St. Dominic last week. And,
yes,
August. The cares in there. Catherine of Siena, obviously the patroness of our Newman Center at Drake University. We're praying for that community as they deal with the catastrophic flooding caused by a faulty switch in their fire alarm sensors and not zoned the whole thing for 20 minutes. So they're a movable campus community. So Thanks to Drake University for making other facilities available to them, and Father P.J. McNeese.
Well, and look at what Gonzaga's done out in Spokane.
With the fires out there.
With the fires, they've opened their residence halls and become a destination for those that have lost their homes, because many of their faculty and staff live up in that area, so it touched them really personally.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that has been a gift about being the president of ACCU. I've moved from the focus of one institution to knowing the whole sector and getting snippets of experience across institutions, across charisms, and getting a bit of their stories, which so I'm a walking encyclopedia of all things Catholic. What can I tell you?
Yeah, but how it's incarnated in a distinct way, the personality, if you will, of each and every campus community and their charism and legacy that's there. As you gravitated toward Catholic higher ed, maybe that was in your heart from the beginning, or maybe it's something that compelled you more and more. Was there an evolving sense of vocation for you as a woman of faith?
I come from, I'm going to laugh when I say this. I come from a Jesuit family, so Jesuit and Catholic sometimes, fit, sometimes don't.
You said it, I didn't.
But I went to Catholic schools. As a child, I was, formed by the Holy Child Sisters. And so it's always been part of my identity and a sense of grounding for me. And when I didn't start out in Catholic higher ed, I got my doctorate at the University of Cincinnati, and I worked at the university and then at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and then here in D.C. for the first time at Mount Vernon College. But I think I was consciously or unconsciously always yearning for the value add that mission provided. And once I returned home to the Jesuits at Fordham, I recognized that piece that was missing and have stayed in the family ever since. And
yet, probably trends of the last decades, mission language has crept in, has kind of been bleeding into public or secular institutions. Is that true?
I think value-laden language has, surely. Okay. And in many respects, it's challenged Catholic higher ed to be even more articulate and grounded in its mission, because to say we care for students is no longer sufficient to distinguish us in the ways that truly matter.
And that Jesuit sense of the care of the person, that was a long-standing sense of Ignatius.
As parents looking at where they're going to send their kids or where their kids may want to go, caring for their students is going to come through no matter where they go. So we have to create that unique experience that parents say, yeah, I want my kids to be here, that formation.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. One of the things that for me has been so interesting and satisfying about this role is it's given me another layer of context about the why. And so, for instance, as I listen to you say that, I want to frame it and say, and think of the co-patrons of Catholic education. Think of St. Thomas Aquinas. Think of St. John Henry Newman. That gives us a sense of the longevity and the depths of what we do best. Excellent education, framed with a focus on the whole person, surrounded by a strong sense of faith and hope. And we have the intellectual tradition that not only supports it, but gives it a sense of history and promise.
Wonderful. And I think of also St. Catherine Drexel, and her sponsorship of particularly Black and Native American colleges as well, her resources. But
No, absolutely. I always have to say when I'm talking about Catholic higher ed, many, in fact, more of our Catholic institutions were founded by congregations of women. And
Indeed.
so the leadership of women has always been a critical element of how Catholic education has formed the student, with a strong sense of emotional intelligence and care for the individual student.
I love that phrase, and of course, even my time in seminary formation, that the emotional intelligence is one of the strong features we want to, inculcate in our men who aspire to the priesthood as well. So may or may not come naturally to some, depending on their formative experiences, both in their families and their educational experiences.
Right, absolutely.
We collaborated for several years on the Higher Education Working Group with the United States Catholic Bishops. You were a consultant on that. That has been sunsetted now, that involvement, but trying to bring the church's shepherds together and presidents and other administrative leaders. Do you think in general, ACCU, that the openness to engaging pastors, leaders in the church is something that's been sustained? Is it kind of fluctuate at times?
A complicated answer, I guess. I will say to begin, I am disappointed that working group is sunsetted. In not so much for the content, but the relationship building. It embedded in those regular meetings. That said, I at least in ACCU try still to be intentional. I still meet with the staffer at the USCCB who supports the Committee on Catholic Higher Ed, and I try to be intentional about other avenues for connecting, because I think it's a very important time for us to be, locked arm in arm moving forward, and for at least two reasons. Number one, we in Catholic higher ed, more so right now than in my experience, and I have a pretty long window of experience, are really looking for the bishop's leadership and voice on some of these thorny issues. This is a climate that is challenging a lot of the values that are so important to Catholic higher ed. So I think to the extent that the bishops have made strong statements, it has enabled presidents to follow with stronger statements, even in a context that is somewhat threatening to them and their institutions. So I think that building relationships for that purpose is important. The other issue,
and some of those issues are thorny. Whether it's immigration or gender-related issues and things like that. Yeah,
they're thorny. Well, thorny. Should I use that term? I think they are pushing us to discern further. And you have to do that in conversation. The other issue that, at least for me right now, is a focus issue, and for ACCU, is this whole transition in sponsorship and how it requires conversation with the bishop, with the congregation, the bishop, and the Vatican. And so again, we're needing to know each other in order to have sufficient trust to make some very important decisions about how the Catholic identity of our institutions is shepherded forward.
Yeah, and that religious communities perhaps have not drawn vocations. Some of them, and the Ursulines and others, that might be present, and so the great resource, spiritual and material, that's there. And how does that legacy continue to be extended, even if there's a lay direction and the kind of alienation, if you will, the technical term, of those resources? So You're in the thick of those conversations, or you kind of stand by trying to facilitate engagement?
A bit of both. A bit of both. I mean, when we were in Rome recently, I took a group of 20 presidents to Rome, and we had a private audience with Pope Leo, which was extraordinary. Sponsorship was one of the big questions. How do we anticipate new models as we're seeing the numbers of religious diminish, and how do we do that with a sensitivity to the communities that are going through these transitions?
I think that's a good place. We've come to that point where we have to pause a little bit, Dr. Carroll, so please stay with us, and maybe we'll look for a few personal impressions of your meeting with the Holy Father and and maybe his comments recently on AI.
Oh, absolutely.
When we return, we will continue our conversation with Dr. Donna Carroll. She is the president of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities. We're going to talk about Pope Leo next. This is going to be good. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Join host Katie Patrizio as she explores the original language, historical backdrop, cultural environment, and Old Testament context of the Scriptures, focusing on the upcoming Sunday readings. Sunday Dive, Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Central, only on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
So meeting some of the dicasteries of the Vatican, but then the time with the Holy Father himself, with your cohort of Catholic College presidents and other staff. Did the Holy Father engage you in English, or did he speak multiple languages to you?
He spoke in English. He accepted baseball caps and stress balls and some more serious gifts. And actually, as a group, and I'm delighted to say I thought this was a great idea. We gave him thousands of service hours at our Catholic institutions in his name.
Beautiful.
Nice.
What a bouquet.
Recognizing that these gifts are lovely, fun things, but they go somewhere other than us. And so this was a nice idea of something active to do. But he was enormously welcoming. He spoke to us briefly and then spent time, gave each president his moment, took a number of pictures, and actually his remarks were very well circulated, and they become part of a series of documents that have really been shaping Catholic higher ed. And I would reach all the way back beyond Ex Corde Ecclesia to the Land O'Lakes document, which that statement will be celebrating its 60th in 2027. The letter he wrote, drawing new maps of hope, Magnificat Humanitas. Some of this is probably my perspective, and I have to say this, but I think it's larger than that. That this Pope, building on the foundation that Pope Francis established, feels more accessible, more relevant to Catholic higher ed today than we have seen before. And of course, the synodal process that preceded his tenure sort of positioned that. Much more conversation on campus about the writings and the leadership of Pope Leo. I think that presidents are so attracted to the integrity that he carries, the consistency of his message, which is not political but is forceful, and of course he's communicating in English,
which it does give an accessibility that has not always been there. So, did you
does.
have a representative of Villanova University, his alma mater, or not, in your group?
No, there was not. But Peter Donahue, the president of Villanova, was part of a panel talk at our last annual meeting, and it personalized it for the presidents even more. But it was, all in all, Bishop, it was a wonderful trip. We we had great access to the various dicasteries, the culture and education particularly, but consecrated life. What was fun for me is I'm back and forth to Rome enough now that I actually have relationships there and go to people. So we went out to the summer residence. We saw the growing new initiative around Laudato Si. We had Mass at the Tomb of St. Peter. We did traditional things, but we also had some candid and serious conversations.
Well, Dr. Carroll, we could extend this more into a second show, but unfortunately we've reached that point, and I will look for that resource that draws together some of these talks of Pope Leo. But thank you for your time, and blessings on you as you continue to be among the foremost leaders among your peers, guiding them and helping them to access the great resources and spiritual depth of our Catholic intellectual tradition.
Well, thank you for the invitation and the conversation.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thanks to our guest and to all of you, our listeners, whether in Iowa, Nebraska, or perhaps D.C., listening to Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Join host Katie Patrizio as she explores the original language, historical backdrop, cultural environment, and Old Testament context of the Scriptures, focusing on the upcoming Sunday readings. Sunday Dive, Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Central, only on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network.